Greetings from our channel. The audience may view Kris Kristofferson, a country music great with a legendary career and timeless tunes like Bobby McGee and Me, as a figure surrounded by grandeur. However, there are shadowy areas behind the stage lights that not everyone is aware of. Kris had to give up a promising military career, deal with illness, personal problems, and never-ending inner struggles in the midst of his meteoric success. What motivated Kris, a former military captain, to take chances and deviate from the norm in order to follow his love of music? His life appears to be a string of audacious yet contradictory decisions. Between prosperity and personal loss, between celebrity and loneliness. Join us as we examine Kris Kristofferson and #039's turbulent career, revealing the true guy behind the timeless songs and iconic roles, as well as his emotional everyday moments and career highs. Childhood. Kris Kristofferson was born in Brownsville, Texas, on June 22, 1936. His upbringing was characterized by expectations and discipline, which were ingrained in his family and #039's military heritage. Lars Henry Kristofferson, his father, was a U.S. a general in the Air Force, and their family often relocated to different military installations. In addition to having an effect on Kris and #039's early years, this instability also produced an unseen pressure, forcing him to follow his father and #039's example and go into the military as his family had planned. Kris was well aware of these high standards from an early age, particularly from his mother, who wished for him to follow the predetermined path and succeed as an officer. Kris thrived in academics and athletics despite bearing this tremendous load. After the family moved to San Mateo, California, Kris maintained his impressive academic record at Pomona College, where he excelled in both academics and athletics. He was skilled in rugby and football, and he was the boxing Golden Gloves champion. He was awarded the coveted Rhodes Scholarship to attend Oxford University in England as a result of his achievements. Alongside these accomplishments, though, Kris came to understand that music, rather than the military or sports, was his true passion. He started creating his first songs and playing at small neighborhood bars during his nights at Oxford. Kris could have pursued a career in the military, but the allure of music was too strong. As his family had anticipated, Kris enlisted in the military after graduation and rose through the ranks fast. He was promoted to captain and was given the opportunity to teach English at the esteemed West Point Military Academy. But instead of taking the offer, Kris did something that startled his whole family. In order to follow his ambition of creating songs and performing, he asked for a leave of absence and traveled to Nashville, the epicenter of country music. His mother in particular was extremely disappointed by this choice. He paid a heavy price for his artistic aspirations. She disowned him for 25 years. But it was this audacious decision that changed Kris and #039's course. One that offers amazing potential as well as many challenges. It turned out to be the pivotal moment that would launch him into a remarkable career that no one could have predicted. Kris Kristofferson and #039's music career. It was not an easy decision for Kris Kristofferson to abandon his military career in order to follow his musical aspirations. Nashville, the epicenter of country music, was not a location where people could just show up and start working at the lowest occupations in the hopes of eventually landing a job. Legends like George Jones, Bob Dylan, and Johnny Cash often visited Columbia Records, where he was a janitor. Kris watched those great artists every day, silently sweeping the floors and emptying ashtrays, hoping that one day he would be one of them. But the days of waiting for a chance seemed to go on forever. Kris and #039's music only occasionally sells. Insufficient to cover expenses. His marriage was growing more and more strained, and his family life was also going through a difficult time. Frances Mavia Beer was his first wife, and the two of them had 2 young children. Family life became more strained as financial strain increased, and his loved ones started to criticize him. Kris needed to use his military-taught piloting skills to make ends meet, accepting dangerous helicopter flying gigs in order to support his family. Kris persisted in making music in spite of the obstacles, even though success looked unreachable. There was silence in response to each demo he put out. Then, in his most audacious moment, Kris made the decision to accomplish the unimaginable. He landed a helicopter on Johnny Cash and #039's yard after flying it directly to his home. In addition to shocking everyone, this act demonstrated his unwavering resolve. Kris showed in with a bottle of beer and a tape of Sunday Morning Coming Down, a song he had put his heart into. Despite the fact that Johnny Cash wasn't and #039's home at the time, the tale of this audacious landing swiftly gained notoriety. After hearing the song, Johnny Cash made the decision to record Sunday Morning Coming Down. Kris Kristofferson, a former recording studio janitor, was Nashville and #039's newest musical phenomenon when the song became a massive smash and won Song of the Year from the Country Music Association, or CMA, in 1970. This was the turning point in his life, demonstrating the success of his unwavering spirit and bravery in risking everything for his goal. Kris didn't and #039's stop there either. With a series of memorable songs in the ensuing years, he further cemented his reputation. One of his most well-known songs, Me and Bobby McGee, peaked at #1 when his ex-lover Janis Joplin performed it following her passing. In addition to being a turning point in Kris and #039's career, the song became a timeless icon in the music industry. Along with Me and Bobby McGee, Kris wrote several singles, including For the Good Times and Help Me Make It Through the Night, which were covered by Ray Price, Sammy Smith, and Elvis Presley. There was more than just country music in Kris and #039's songs. They expressed unadulterated, sincere feelings about love and life. He didn't and #039's hesitate to write about the most basic yet truthful facets of human nature, such as loneliness, suffering, and the desire for love. Known for his amazing songwriting skills and unwavering creative energy, Kris Kristofferson not only changed the face of country music but also became an icon for a generation of songwriters thanks to his ongoing success and multiple important accolades. Kris went from being a little-known janitor to becoming one of the most significant songwriters of his time, making a significant and enduring impression on the general audience. Acting career of Kris Kristofferson. Kris Kristofferson made a big impact in movies in addition to being a great musician. When he co-starred with the legendary Barbra Streisand in A Star Is Born in 1976, his acting career really took off. In addition to winning him a Golden Globe for Best Actor, Kris and #039's portrayal of aging rock singer John Norman Howard won over viewers and #039's hearts. Kris gave the character a lot of real, unfiltered emotion, which was the ideal fusion of acting and music. Viewers experienced the inner turmoil, loneliness, and suffering that go along with fame in addition to seeing an artist on film. But A Star Is Born was only the start. Before making his debut in A Star Is Born, Kris had previously demonstrated his remarkable acting skills in the iconic Western Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which was helmed by the renowned Sam Peckinpah, in 1973. Kris portrayed Billy the Kid, a tough, untamed bandit with a lot of depth. He made the audience consider the idea of freedom and its price by portraying Billy as both strong and sympathetic. In addition to showcasing Kris and #039's acting ability, this part showed off his versatility by demonstrating how easily he could go from being a musician to a legendary cowboy. Kris, however, wasn't and #039's limited to Western movies. He experimented with and made a reputation for himself in a number of genres. In the enigmatic crime thriller Lone Star, which focused on historical crimes, he played Sheriff Charlie Wade in 1996. In sharp contrast to the heroic roles Kris had portrayed before, this one was a deep and complicated antagonist. In addition to receiving praise from critics for its story, Lone Star assisted Kris in establishing his range as an actor, demonstrating his ability to play tough, sinister parts. Kris Kristofferson and #039's portrayal of Abraham Whistler in the fantasy action movie series Blade, 1998, is arguably his most well-known role for contemporary audiences. Kris portrayed Blade and #039's mentor, a vampire hunter, as a tough, resilient person who also emanated compassion and protection. He made a dramatic shift from his traditional cowboy roles to contemporary action movies with this portrayal. In the Blade series, Whistler became a legendary character. Kris played the part again in 2 follow-up films, further solidifying his appeal to younger audiences. Kris did have some highs and lows in his acting career, though. The movie Heaven and #039's Gate in 1980 dealt him a serious blow to his career. Notwithstanding its substantial budget, the film received negative reviews from critics and was a box office bust. It was criticized for being too ambitious and lengthy, and Kris and #039's film career had a rough time as a result of its failure. He revealed that Hollywood appeared to abandon him after Heaven and #039's Gate, rendering him temporarily unsellable. Kris, however, never gave up easy. He kept working on several TV and movie projects, progressively regaining his reputation in the business. Kris is a multi-talented artist who thrives in both music and film, and his perseverance and unwavering attitude are what have allowed him to keep shining. The conflict between Kris Kristofferson and #039's family and health. Outside of the bright lights of the stage, Kris Kristofferson had serious health and personal issues. He was a well-known and gifted artist who had 3 turbulent marriages and raised 8 children. However, one of his biggest challenges in later life would be his fight against deteriorating memory. Kris started to notice concerning symptoms related to his memory in the late 2000s. More than ever before, he had trouble focusing and often lost crucial things. He was initially given an Alzheimer and #039's diagnosis by doctors, which was a terrible blow that made his family nervous and afraid. Kris and his family prepared for a protracted and challenging battle as they faced the prospect of losing the creative spark that had defined his work as well as his treasured memories. Kris wasn't #039's fighting this war alone, though. Lisa Myers, his third wife, supported him through it all. In addition to becoming Kris and #039's life partner, Lisa played a significant role in assisting him in determining the actual reason of his health problems. Lisa steadfastly pursued answers for her husband, refusing to accept the first diagnosis. After years of hardship and testing, they eventually learned that Kris had Lyme illness, which was brought on by a tick bite and, unlike Alzheimer and #039's, was treatable. Kris received therapy and recovered miraculously with Lisa and #039's assistance. His family turned into a solid support network that helped him get through his worst moments. Following Lyme disease treatment, Kris and #039's memory slowly came back, enabling him to recover a large portion of the skills he had previously worried he had lost. Even in his twilight years, Kris returned with newfound strength, and friends and family referred to this recovery as a rebirth. Prior to settling down with Lisa, Kris had experienced difficult marriages. During the difficult years while he was still trying to establish himself in the music industry, his first wife, Frances Mavia Beer, supported him. But as they raised their 2 kids, Tracy and Kris Jr., the strain of family responsibilities and financial distress finally caused their marriage to fail. Despite choosing a more modest career route, Kris and #039's eldest daughter, Tracy Kristofferson, inherited her father and #039's talent. Despite her performances in Trouble in Mind and Night of the Cyclone, Tracy chose to live a more private life away from the spotlight. Kris Jr., on the other hand, chose a quiet, mostly hidden private life and totally separated himself from the entertainment industry. In 1973, Kris and singer Rita Coolidge got married for the second time, and it looked like the ideal marriage between 2 famous people. However, their relationship was damaged due to Kris and #039's battle with alcoholism and professional conflicts. The marriage finally dissolved in 1980, despite the fact that they had a daughter together, Kris Kristofferson. After inheriting her parents and #039's musical prowess, Kris continued her father and #039's musical tradition by leading the Kris Kristofferson Band and releasing her debut album, Dirty Feet, in 2019. Kris had never felt stability after the heartaches of his past relationships until he met Lisa Myers. They were married in 1983 after their love swiftly developed after they first met at a gym in Malibu. Lisa developed into more than just a life companion. Kris was able to find calm after his life and #039's storms thanks to her. Kris gained new hope in his fight with disease because to Lisa and #039's persistent support and assistance in overcoming the incorrect diagnosis of Alzheimer and #039's together, Kris and Lisa have 5 kids, and each one has a special backstory. Born in 1983, Jesse carried on his father and #039's legacy. Pursue a career in sports and acting. Born in 1985, Jody started wrestling professionally as Garrett Dillon. Born in 1988, Johnny pursued an academic career, graduating from Pepperdine University with a law degree. Blake, the youngest, was born in 1994 and opted for a more subdued lifestyle, while Kelly Marie, born in 1990, demonstrated her versatility as an artist. Keeping out of the spotlight. In addition to being a source of pride for Kris, his kids represent evidence of his accomplishments as a father and an artist. Thanks to Lisa and his huge family and #039's constant support, Kris Kristofferson has consistently been able to overcome the numerous obstacles he has faced with his health and family. He has remained strong because of his family and #039's love, support, and fortitude. Even in the midst of life and #039's most difficult struggles. Kris Kristofferson is nearing the end of his life and no longer seeks out the dazzling lights of the stage. Rather, he has shifted his focus to calm and quiet. Kris recovered miraculously from a tough battle with Lyme disease, which almost robbed him of his memory and inventiveness, but he also realized that his time in the spotlight was slowly coming to an end. Kris, who formerly enthralled audiences with his heartfelt songs, has decided to take a back seat and concentrate on his family. He doesn't and #039's see these latter years as a time to pursue celebrity or the thundering cheers of the audience. Instead, he dedicates his days to savoring the small moments spent with those who have supported him over the highs and lows of his extraordinary life. Kris is aware that he can no longer give as much as he once could, even if his health has improved. His life and #039's constant companion, music, hasn't and #039's completely abandoned him, though. He continues to perform at exceptional music events, such the 2023 commemoration of Willie Nelson and #039's 90th birthday. Kris and #039's and spirit continue to radiate power in his unwavering love of music, the force that created and defined his legacy, even though his body may not be as strong as it once was. Even if they are seldom, each appearance is a sincere homage to the fans who have always stood by and adored him. Kris conveys a message of tenacity and passion just by his presence. He doesn't and #039's need to say much. He has also realized that it and #039's time to let go, though. Kris formally declared his retirement in 2021, signifying the conclusion of a creative journey that lasted more than 50 years. Although it was a difficult choice, he knew it was time to pass the torch on to the next generation, thus it was a natural and accepted one. Kris has found great fulfillment in leading a tranquil life surrounded by family and the natural world. He had time to think back on his life from the early hardships in Nashville during the COVID-19 pandemic, through the struggles he had in both his personal and professional life, to his eventual ascent to fame in both music and movies. Kris has no regrets because he lived life to the fullest and gave his all to his art and his followers. Fans will always carry Kris Kristofferson and #039's name in their hearts, despite the fact that he is no longer performing. Generations of musicians and audiences worldwide have been inspired by his immortal melodies and roles. A life lived with courage and determination is demonstrated by his peaceful and contented dying trip. The legacy of a real legend is appropriately concluded by his transformation from an active artist to a thoughtful, calm man. What legacy will Kris Kristofferson leave behind in the annals of music and cinema? His life encompassed the entire range of artistic expression, from unfiltered feelings and hardships to victories and healing. The question still stands, yet his legacy will live on. Will the principles that Kris devoted his life to be upheld and preserved by future generations? In the years to follow, every admirer of his work, artist, and fan will keep thinking about this. What most impresses you about Kris Kristofferson? To continue the discussion, leave your ideas in the comments section below. We appreciate you viewing our video. And the next one will see you.